I am not just going to go ahead and start doing this. Michelle has reserved editorial rights on which rock goes where and which color. So, hey, welcome back to another episode of Maintenance with Mike. So today on Maintenance with Mike, we are going to be doing a walkway, a stone walkway. We're using the Kubota BX23S. Some of you who are my subscribers may recognize this concrete wall here. I'll put a link to that video if anybody's interested in building a concrete retaining wall in front of their house, so you can see how that's done. But we're going to be working on this today. We've got a load full of sand. We're going to be putting some landscape cloth down. I've got a really good tip on getting started to know the depth that you want to be, the finish grade and all that. You don't want to make the mistake of not digging down far enough. So let's get started. So one of the mistakes that I made that I want you to learn from, because that's what this is all about, is I didn't dig down deep enough in some previous projects before I put the landscape cloth down. And we've got a finish grade, obviously, that we want to achieve. And without digging down far enough, I was just fighting myself, and I would have to push the landscape cloth back, try to dig some hard pan dirt underneath the landscape cloth out so I could maintain that finished grade. So what we're going to talk about first thing is marking the height of your finished grade. I used a laser. You don't have to use a laser if for example, if the top surface of this retaining wall here is level. You can measure down and say, look, you know what? I want my finished grade to be 5 inches down from the top of this wall. And then you can calculate based on that mark. So if you put a line and a triangle showing finished grade, we've got about 6 inches of distance between that mark and the top of the original dirt that we've dug down to. So this is the finished grade mark, and we've got 5.5 to 6 inches here of play. Now we know that the flagstone, the thickest piece that I've randomly measured right now is 3.5 inches. So if you take that 3.5 and you add about 2 to 3 inches of sand, you know, we're looking at like 5.5-ish, and we've got 6 inches of play here. So right out of the gate, we know that when we put down the landscape cloth and a couple inches of sand, we can remove some of that sand or add some of that sand based on the thickness of the rock to maintain that finished grade throughout this whole area here. The biggest mistake I did before on previous jobs like this is I didn't dig down far enough, and now you're fighting yourself trying to maintain that finished grade. So we're going to be sitting about 5 inches down from the top of this wall, and this wall here, there's a mark right here. Let me make that mark a little darker here. Looks like I rubbed it with the backhoe tire. So that's the grade, the finished grade. And again, we've got about 6 inches there. We want to make sure that this space in between these two walls is somewhat level. We've got 4 foot level. You can throw it across here. Make sure this is somewhat level. And again, we're going to be able to manipulate that with the sand to make sure that we keep these level all the way through. So I've pulled you back now here to show you the big picture. And now a lot of you who are my subscribers will recognize this wall. This was a very big project for me to take on by myself, but extremely satisfying once it was done. There's one little crack right here that has happened over the winter, and it only goes down, oh, I don't know, maybe a couple inches on the side. So something just shifted there a little bit. But you know what? If you have concrete, it's not a matter of if it's going to crack. It's a matter of when it's going to crack. So this, you can see, is nice and level all the way down here. The rock road is going to end right here, where at the edge of this house, this is where this wall ends. And then it's going to be grass over to another set of stairs. And what we're just going to do on the grass is we're going to dig out, we got some big flagstone pieces, we're going to dig out some stepping stones into the grass. So this will be all landscape rock and flagstone. And we're gonna try, we've looked at a product called Lockdown, which is some sort of glue that you spray, and it holds the gravel that's beside the stepping stones from being kicked around and shifted. So we're going to show you that as well. But this kind of gives you an idea of what we're doing here, right? We're going to have a bunch of these rocks sort of randomly placed all around in here, and then we're going to have gravel in between the rocks. And then we're going to spray that lockdown on here and see if we can get that all to stay still. So the next step now, once we've got this all dug out, is we need to go get the landscape cloth and basically form this whole thing with landscape cloth. And up the sides here, we can cut off the excess later. But we just want to, I don't know if it's 48 inches wide or not, the landscape cloth. I don't think it is. I think it's only 36. Well, it doesn't matter anyway, because this is 55 inches wide. Yes, it has to be, because I made this wide enough specifically for the bucket on the tractor to drive through here, in case I need to bring a new fridge or something like that up onto this patio. I can basically carry it on a pallet right here, and that was the idea anyway. So it is wider than 48, so we're going to have an overlap here and a little bit up the sides, which is fine. Okay, so this is not the fabric or sort of felt-like landscape cloth. This is, pretty sure this was from Costco. It's called a Weed Barrier Platinum, 200 feet. Shows it flower beds, rock beds. Yeah, looks like it looked like a pretty good product when we looked at it. It's looks pretty durable, really hard to tear. Unfortunately, like I said, we're gonna have to do an overlap here because it's not going to be wide enough to go through here. Well, let's start by putting this down here. That's so close, eh? We'll put a rock here to hold it in place. We want it a little bit up on the side so that we get some stuff going up the sides. Now hopefully we can just roll this out. And I've got my razor knife here to cut it with. Looks like I've parked the tractor too close to my workspace here. There we go. Give me a little more room here. There's kind of the idea. Like I said, we want this to come up the wall here. We'll be able to cut this off after the fact. We do have marks on the wall though, so we could. Oh wow, actually look at that. So you can see, here's our finished grade mark right here with the arrow pointing up, right? So that's finished grade. So you want the landscape cloth to go up the side a little bit like that. My worry about driving the tractor on the landscape cloth is it's going to get all messed up, but we're going to try it just because I'm not interested in rolling it all up again. So we're going to cut off this piece down here now with our razor knife. I'm hoping that if I take some scoops of sand and throw them against this curve here, just along this ridge, that that'll hold it there enough that I can drive the tractor in. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Now we're going to find out together if this is a good idea or not. You don't want to put too much sand, but like I said, we have like 2 inches of sand to play with, right? So I'm hoping this kind of keeps it where it needs to be. It should. Then we take our next piece. And we start it down here again. Now a little sand underneath this piece. I just don't want it, it's getting a little bit windy out now, so we don't want to fight ourselves with this. Do our overlap here, stick the rock here, and off we go again. So we've got our sand holding our landscape cloth down. We've overlapped it a bit. We've run the landscape cloth about 6 inches past where the rock's going to end. And basically this will be a line here of grass now, continuing on. And then the pavers, or flagstone, I guess you'd call it. Safety belt. Trees, blossoms. Down the hill we go. Buck it up. Buck it down as we make our turn. Keep the load as low as possible on the ground. And off we go. Traverse it. love this little BX tractor for residential use. Man. Fits in a lot of places a lot of tractors wouldn't. So that turned out pretty good. We got a nice sort of base here. We can just use the hoe and, you know, rake some that way and just keep pulling this base back as we lay the rocks, checking them for level with the lines that we've marked on the for finished grade. And yeah, just keep working our way this way. I am not just going to go ahead and start doing this. Michelle has reserved editorial rights on which rock goes where and which color. So I am going to just bring some rocks over and sort of get this raked around to the rough height that we want, and then we'll start placing some rocks. So that's going to do it for today's video. Next video, we're going to be doing the placement of the rocks, working our way back, and then we'll be throwing some gravel down beside those, and then using that lockdown product or something similar to that to hold all the rocks together. But I hope this gives you a really good idea of how to get started on your rock walkway. So I'm just going to rake this around and sort of bring some rocks over. But I appreciate you hanging out with us for a bit today. If you like these videos, maybe consider subscribing to the channel. Maybe share them with a family member or friend, and we'll see you on the next one. Cheers.